Are you drowning in tech debt? Maybe your product partners are in feature factory mode and don't want to pay down the debt. Or maybe you have agreement on the priority and engineering capacity to draw down your tech debt that then evaporates when you actually plan sprints. Are you tired of sounding the alarm bell that tech debt has reached an overwhelming level, but no one listens until there's an outage for customers? That, of course, you are blamed for. Why is it a lot harder to actually make progress on cleaning up tech debt than it should be? Welcome to a video from AKF Partners on this topic, which is part of a short series of videos to help you keep your tech debt under control and generally keep your application house in order. Part 1 in this series focuses on the importance of defining tech debt, the definition itself, and a commentary about the value of tech debt. That is it good or bad? Many of our clients struggle with managing tech debt for a multitude of reasons. As this series progresses, we will present practical strategies for mitigating the factors that may result in tech debt getting to an overwhelming level. So what is tech debt? Seems obvious, doesn't it? But without a common documented definition of the term, we see many teams where stakeholders are not defining tech debt in the same way. And it follows that if stakeholders are not talking about the same defined bucket of work, then it becomes impossible to have an aligned strategy to prioritize and manage tech debt on an ongoing basis. Let's start with a brief history of the term. The tech debt metaphor was first coined by Ward Cunningham circa 1992. Metaphors are useful tools to help bridge knowledge gaps by associating a new or more complex concept with a commonly familiar concept. Ward's original words relating tech debt to the idea of financial debt were as follows. Shipping first-time code is like going into debt. A little debt speeds development. The danger occurs when the debt is not repaid. Tech debt started out as a good metaphor to financial debt, but it's become a relatively broad catch-all term for any engineering work that is not focused on building new features. This unintentional expansion of the definition in most organizations has made it more difficult for stakeholders managing this work, primarily product management and engineering, to align on the level of effort needed to effectively manage it. In addition to product management, key strategic and financial stakeholders such as CEOs, CFOs, and heads of businesses also understand this financial metaphor well. But when the definition of tech debt is expanded and/or ambiguous, the financial metaphor breaks down and is therefore meaningless and not helpful in creating a common definition for stakeholders to align to. So let's define tech debt in a precise way and take this metaphor back to its financial roots. AKF defines tech debt as an act of commission that requires acting with forethought. Since forethought is required, we only assume tech debt knowingly. In short, tech debt is the debt we take on when we decide to do something fast but in a suboptimal way in order to get to market faster. This definition is consistent with the financial metaphor. We take on financial debt knowingly. The idea of financial debt that is assumed without the debtor's knowledge does not exist. Or if it does exist, it would be defined as fraud. That is, you can't go into financial debt without making the decision to do so. Therefore, acts of omission, where engineering forgets to plan or do something or makes mistakes like bugs, do not count as tech debt. For an ongoing business, tech debt should refer to the part of the code that was initially implemented in a suboptimal way and should be fixed in the future. There are some cases where addressing the tech debt in the future may not be necessary. For example, if tech debt is acquired testing product market fit and you find parts of the product do not fit after testing with users, those portions may be removed rather than improved to meet standards. But in most cases, you will want to go back and improve the part of the code that has the debt associated with it. But is tech debt good or bad? Well, if we are properly using the definition, then we first need to answer the question, is financial debt good or bad? Like many things in life, some debt for a business is usually appropriate in moderation. When a corporation assumes debt, it is able to use the funds to invest in growing the business. For example, debt could be used to fund a new or fast-growing product build-out. In addition to cash flow generated from ongoing operations, companies can also choose to raise funds by selling an equity stake in their firm. Selling an equity stake by issuing new shares dilutes existing ownership, while debt does not dilute ownership. Debt does, however, result in future interest payments. The runaway problem with debt comes if the amount of interest becomes overwhelming to the point where the debt can no longer be serviced. In the case of a software system, the interest payments are the extra time needed to work within the code in the areas where the debt exists. The principal payments are akin to actually going into the code and moving the initial implementation from suboptimal to optimal or meeting standards. As we have discussed, conflating the tech debt definition with other types of non-feature related application health work essentially renders the financial metaphor and definition meaningless, and it can lead to mistrust between product and engineering, as other mistakes or acts of omission are lumped together with the conscious decisions to take on tech debt. Our partners in business may think we are hiding the truth if we do not clearly delineate the difference between tech debt and mistakes, failures, or other issues related to maintenance. Following are some examples of other work that are commonly thrown in the tech debt bucket but are not tech debt. Poor architectural choices that later need to be re-implemented, managing the backlog of production bugs, addressing improvements identified in incident post-mortems, creating unit tests, addressing emerging security threats, performing upgrades on parts of the system. But these items are things that we need to think about when building and maintaining software, and we also need to dedicate capacity to them. So if they are not tech debt, then what are they? Common terminology for these non-tech debt health items include keeping the lights on, maintenance, sustaining work, or run the business. In the next video, we will discuss best practices for managing all of this application health work on an ongoing basis. But today you can get started by creating a documented definition for tech debt within your organization that is consistent with the financial metaphor, and you will be off to a great start.